Welcome to the FOX43 Book Club discussion for this month, our May pick. So excited. Today we're going to be talking about Funny How Things Change by Melissa Wyatt. But before we get into that, Kaylee, how are you today?
I am great. It's been a busy month. It's been a month since we've been here. We just came off the Memorial Day holiday, had a great day yesterday. I got to walk around the park and do some, nice little outdoorsy stuff. So I had a little pool party over the weekend, with you, of course.
Having some fun in the sun.
Yeah. What about you? How was your May?
It was good. It was actually my B-Day yesterday, so
yes,
HBD. And now we're back from the extended, but it was great because this was the first time the weather was really nice over Memorial Day weekend. I don't know if you noticed, but I think my husband went out to the store and they're like, this is like the first nice Memorial Day weekend in a bunch of years.
I never noticed that.
Oh my gosh,
I had no idea.
It either goes, this is the meteorologist in me, right? It either goes like rainy or it's cool. It's never been sunshine, warm, all the above. And this time we really hit it out of the park. Yay! I know. So it was good in that regard. This month overall, I was able to read a lot more. I know, folks, it takes me a while to finish a book.
We did it.
But we finished not only the book club book, but a second book. Woo! I know. I'm shocked
We're
too.
Impressed.
I know. Kaylee probably finished 5 books, but
I only did 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We're
fair.
on par.
Oh, we're on par. we're feeling the same energy.
Yes.
And they were good books. The other one was a mystery or more of a thriller.
Love that.
Every Value Break. I don't know if you've heard. I mentioned
No.
it when we did our Meet the Author out at Bound Books. Also, huge shout out to Bound Books in York. Thank you for hosting us for that interview. If you want to look at that, head over to our website, fox43.com. I believe Kaylee posted the video, and also some more information about Melissa Wyatt as well there.
Yep.
Awesome. She's on top of it, folks.
We'll
Could I
drop the
ask for
link
a better
below.
partner? She just knows how it's done.
I'm just very passionate about books,
Oh, I can tell. And she's always prompt and she's always ready to go. And that's why today we're going to get into our discussion. And Kaylee's going to guide us through this month's pick, Funny How Things Change. As mentioned, right around 200 pages. I think it was just under because of the a little bit of the acknowledgments at the back, perhaps. Can't recall exactly how many, but it was a good read. It was a fast read.
Nice and snappy.
Yeah, to the point, which is nice. So there wasn't any extra added conversation or concern. I feel like it was really what you were reading was what you were getting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there were some underlying tones that we're going to talk about. But Kaylee, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. So just a quick little recap. We read Funny How Things Change this month. It's by author Melissa Wyatt, who we spoke to, and you'll get to hear a little bit more from later in this discussion. But it's about Remy right here. Remy is trying to decide whether he wants to go to college with his girlfriend, Lisa. Well, not go to college. Remy is not going to college no matter what. But he's trying to decide if he wants to go to Pennsylvania with her to get out of his little hometown in West Virginia, or if he wants to stay and make a life for himself in West Virginia. And he flip-flops a lot. He goes back and forth. And that's really what the whole book is about, is that journey, through your hometown. But I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to. I was just doing the college search not that super long ago, and I sort of had the same idea. I toured colleges in Boston and all over because I grew up in sort of a small town, and I was like, it'd be kind of cool to go elsewhere. But then, sort of like Remy, I ended up only going an hour and a half away. So I don't know, what about you, Allie, if you had some sort of experience like that?
Oh, yeah. High school years. I feel like for everybody, you either really loved the high school time or it just wasn't your jam, and there's no problem with either or. You may have fell in the middle at some point, but it was definitely a scary time. It feels like a lot is on your shoulders. You have a big decision to make. And because at that age, you're so inward, I don't want to say that you're I don't want to say it's a negative thing. It's just part of development and growing up. All you think about is kind of where do I want to end up? Who do I want to be? Where do I want to go? It can be super overwhelming to have another person involved like Remy did, kind of trying to direct your path almost. And you don't really know who you are as a teenager sometimes. So for me, I definitely could see why this was huge, right, in the making, you know what I mean? And why this was the core to the story. Now, it's hard, too, because his small town was in rural West Virginia, right?
Yeah, whole different ball game.
Right. Where I'm from South Jersey, so the tri-state area, you kind of see a lot in your maybe 15, 16, 17. If you're lucky, you can kind of move borders easily. For him, I feel he was very much in his element in his home.
Yeah.
So it might have been even scarier deciding to leave because of the fact that he was so one with the landscape. You know what I mean? But we got to talk to Melissa Wyatt herself about the development of the characters. So I think we should start with Remy, right?
Yeah.
And just see what her thought process went into creating Remy's character and just the writing process there.
One of the reviews called him a good old boy who's not completely good. So that's what we were aiming for. He's very internal, I feel. He keeps everything very close to the vest. So the third person voice came from that. Remy was never going to tell this story. Somebody else had to tell it for him. So I think he's too modest, to think that his story is important. So somebody else had to step in for him.
Yeah, so I thought it was really interesting how she sort of says that Remy is made of the mountains, which I think is really, really true. You can sort of see that that weaves throughout the whole entire book. He's really at war with himself over whether he wants to stay with these mountains he loves, this mountain that is literally named after his family, Walker Mountain, or if he wants to go with his girlfriend, who he's sort of convinced that this relationship is the be-all, end-all, this is all he'll ever want. And I think that's really relatable as a 17-year-old in a relationship. You really think that that's it. That's all you're ever going to want, all you're ever going to need. And it's just really interesting to sort of follow Remy through that journey as he figures out what he wants and where he wants to go. And I thought it was also really interesting that Melissa was talking about how the girls are, that's not the main, it's not a love story. It's really easy to look at this and say, oh, it's a YA novel about whether Remy wants to follow his girlfriend to Pennsylvania or not. And it's not. It's really about, Remy and his love for his hometown versus his love for wanting to explore. And those two girls were, more of a, I think Melissa said, a way for him to see an outside perspective on his hometown. Or an inside with Lisa, his girlfriend, and an outside with Dana, the girl that he meets.
Right. And they both were valid perspectives, especially because Lisa was in the same boat as him, growing up there, living there, being there with her family. She had she wasn't exactly the same as him, Their living situation was a little bit different. Her parents owned the corner store down in the downtown. They had a little bit more, money, we'll say, than Remy did and his father, but they still had that core similarity. They both grew up there. It's like when you have that childhood friend and you become, more than friends, and that perspective was very true. And I think Dana coming in, being a little bit more artsy, pushing the boundaries, saying, hey, I could open up a studio in that town just off the beaten track that was fairly close, but, not close to her hometown, or, I'm seeing the world. I have more sites to go see. I have more projects to do. And then I'm going back to school. It really showed that he didn't have to do anything. That's the important thing, I think, is that in your life, you're faced with choices, and sometimes it feels like you have to make a certain choice. But it's always your choice at the end of the day, right? And I think that was what he was struggling with, was not so much does he love Lisa, should he pursue something with Dana, but what is the choice he's going to make at the end of the day? Is it going to upset his family? Is it going to upset the girls? Is it going to upset him? Is he going to think, hey, this was a bad choice? And I love how they brought up the fact that you could always come back.
Yes.
You know what I mean? If you wanted to try something, you want to go somewhere, you can literally always come back home. You just start over, start fresh, see what's out there. And if you're not a fan, you can come back. But because the landscape was such a huge player, we talked to Melissa Wyatt about this. Basically, it was a love of his home, right? And Kaylee also mentioned that. So I think the next big player in the book in terms of characters was the landscape, and the way that she developed the landscape really changed the book for me, I thought. So let's hear her thoughts about the writing process there.
As far as the landscape, the mountains, yeah, that also was not planned. I was writing, And
Okay.
the part where he's walking along the
Can you also
highway,
hear it?
where they have cut the mountain to put the
For
road
us,
in, and the water is running out. And that actually is a spot outside of the town where my
She basically
father-in-law
said
grew
she didn't
up,
want to like go too
and
much in depth, but she
where the
wanted,
water drips
she wanted
down. And I
definitely.
thought that's like
Yeah.
the
Ooh,
veins
it's like
of
you're
the
in a recording
mountains.
studio.
Just
And
like
I
that.
realized that
She's dropping her
that
album.
landscape
Singing.
is so important and
Get
so
ready.
big that it needs that importance of being a character. So I tried not to go overboard with anthropomorphic
quote.
details,
good, good.
like just enough
See?
so that you get
It's
that
all coming
feeling,
together.
like when he walks through the
always
breath of
figured.
the mountain. And
Always
also
in
to
the
keep it in Remy's point of view, that these were things that he just
like
lived
book love
with
always just
every
walks in
day,
the light, you know?
and that he had absorbed, not that he was walking along every day and going, oh my gosh, look at this wonderful place where I live. It's just, to him, it was just home.
Okay, so I have two things that really stuck out to me about this little insight from Melissa. The first is that I thought that a quote that really like just embodied the whole theme of this story was, it's on page 31 if anybody has the book and wants to go look. Remy thinks to himself, what is a mountain supposed to be worth anyways? And he's thinking about his dad selling the mountain and whether or not he's ready for him to do that and all that sort of thing. But I just think it really, really embodies the whole book because he like keeps coming back to this idea that technically like the town that he lives in, the mountain that is theirs, it's really worth nothing technically, monetary wise. But if you dig a little deeper, it's worth everything to like Remy and his family and the people who live there. And I also thought it was really interesting with Dana, the character, because I thought Melissa did a really good job of not making her seem like I feel like this is a trope, you know, like often used, the outsider coming in and like showing them all the beautiful things about their town, which that's fine, that's a great trope. But I feel like Melissa Wyatt did a really great job of making her not exactly like that. Like they don't get together in the end. Sorry if that's a spoiler, but like that made it a little bit different. And it was really interesting to just see Dana as like a real person. Like she wasn't overwhelmingly like, oh my gosh, this place is so beautiful, this place is so perfect, which I think is what happens a lot when you have that sort of character. So I really liked that aspect of the book, and it also sort of made me wonder like, what would an outsider think of my hometown? Like it's not as small of a town as Remy is from, it's not in the West Virginia mountains, but it just really like got me thinking about that sort of idea.
Yeah, like the tourist aspect,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You can tour, you can see the best parts of a place, but until you live there, then and only then you'll really know what it goes down and
Yeah.
what the lifestyle's like and what the neighborhood's like. And that does pose a really interesting question because Melissa had ties, right? Melissa Wyatt had ties to West Virginia. She told us, part of her life was going down there for family reunions and things like that. So she had a really interesting perspective. She wasn't from there, but she had that perspective from an outsider. So it's almost like she wrote Dana for herself, right? I think, in regards to where you're from, you're always going to love it yourself, but you're somebody who sometimes wants to get out, you want to see new things, or you want to stay there your whole life. It just depends on the person, right? It depends on your experience, but having somebody else come in can always skew that opinion, or you could always say, oh, I don't really care what you think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm still going to be here, born and bred, staying forever. But yeah, I loved having Dana. She was also a little bit of like, oh, I could relax for a little bit reading with her. Not to say that Lisa was a bad person. There was just so much pressure. I was just feeling a lot of pressure.
Conflict.
Yeah, a lot of conflict between the two because of this life that they were talking about. And it almost felt like, oh no, like if we don't do it, is there going to be a problem? You know what I mean? Like, what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
So just a lot of pressure going back to being a teen and having that. And what you said about the landscape, right? And the dad even posing that opportunity of selling the mountain, selling Walker Mountain.
I can't imagine having that decision at 17 years old, like to sell my family's entire heritage. Like that's crazy.
I know. And he was trying to do a nice thing, and I felt like the sacrifice was totally there, and the dad wanted to have that, try to give that to him. But I was just like, oh no,
Yeah.
I can't. The anxiety's
don't
rising.
Put that on me.
I know. And I'm thinking, I'm like, well, maybe in our own lives, like our parents make those sacrifices all the time and maybe we
Yeah.
just didn't even realize. And who knows, maybe we had similar things come up and we just didn't even realize when we were teens because we were so inward or like focusing on grades or focusing on those college applications and whatnot. So the dad was a major player, I think, because when we asked Melissa Wyatt at Bound who her top characters were, her top 3, she, obviously said Remy, our main character. Then I was like, I feel like it's the landscape. She said, I'm glad you've picked up on that. Kaylee also agreed. And then she was talking about the dad because the dad was that figure for him, the person for him, because his mom, she wanted to see the world. She wanted to move out and she went down to the beach instead. So in this moment, he's the kind of one that he's having these conversations with. So let's talk a little bit about the behind the characters for the dad himself.
Love his dad. I love his dad so much. Because I think that was the example for Remy of how, you can make those individual choices and make them work for you when everyone else around you is saying, yeah, you shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, so I thought it was really cool that Remy's dad really gave him that, like, autonomy. Like, it was nice that he didn't agree with Remy. He didn't think that Remy should go with Lisa, but he was like, like, you're basically a grown man. You should have the right to make these decisions. And it was also a little bit heartbreaking because he was like, this is all I can give you. All I can give you is selling the mountain and giving you this money. And it was just so nice to, like, see him care about Remy like that, because his dad is very much like, I think I said this when we were talking to Melissa Wyatt, but like he's like what I picture as like your West Virginia mountain man, like born and bred, literally raised by the mountains. Like his job is going to like hand dig out coal from the mountains, which is a hard way to live. So I thought like it was cool that rubbed off on Remy, but he's also like, I think it's a pretty good blend of his mom and dad.
Because I was gonna say there's not a lot of forward-facing emotion from dad, right? And to have this moment where I'm willing to, and parents do things for their kids all the time, major sacrifices, but to see it and to read it and to feel that sense of, okay, wow, this is a big decision. Like now we have these, like it just goes to show you how important Remy was to him, even though they kind of kept it quiet or they didn't talk a lot at the dinner or breakfast table, and they were both living almost separate lives, and he trusted him to like the extent that he did. I felt like it was nice to see that little breakdown of emotion between the two, especially with the guys, right? Yeah. It can be hard, especially when big things happen. I don't know, sometimes people don't want to talk about their relationships or talk about fights. And that's just anybody, not just, teenagers or teenage boys. But I felt like this was a really nice, almost break of the wall. And they could kind of really discuss, what are we going to do next? How are we going to go forward? How do we feel about Lisa? Do we love her to the extent of doing that? Do you want to go to college? How are you going to pay for it? Like they really got down to the nitty gritty in that moment. And it was all about the landscape. You know what I mean? It was all about this theme of, this is our home. We love it so much, but are we willing to move on to, see different things and try different things? Or is there a way we can do both? Or is there a way that we just maybe don't leave? You know what I mean?
We can just stay here. This is our home. I thought it was also really interesting, like both hearing Melissa talk about and seeing in the book, like the family reunions and how everybody was sort of like, oh my gosh, like I want to come back. I want to see like West Virginia again. And Melissa said that when she was down there, she was sort of like, wow, like I started thinking to myself, like first of all, why would somebody want to stay? But then if they did leave, why would they want to come back? And that was a big inspiration for the story. And I personally have never been to West Virginia, but I thought it was really interesting. Like that's a good question. Like if it is as rural, as remote as all the books and everything makes it seem, like why would they?
But you could say that about any place. Like some people are not into the city lifestyle. Some people live the city lifestyle and they're ready for the suburbs. Some people are in the suburbs and it's still just not what they're looking for, and they want acreage, they want They want to be able to walk out and see the mountains. They want to be able to go to a stream. So it's all personal preference. It's just when people are relying on you for that personal preference, it makes it seem like, oh gosh, what am I thinking? What do I like?
Yeah.
what do I want to do with my life? Now, we did get a comment. So from Marcia, thank you so much for dropping
Hi,
a comment
Marsha.
down below. Yes, hello. She asked us who our favorite characters were. So Kaylee, are you ready to tell us?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I think that my favorite character. Okay, I have two actually. Either Dana, because like I said, like I did like that she was just sort of a breath of fresh air. You never got this sense that she was like competing with Lisa for Remy. Like she did express her feelings to Remy, but she was sort of like, I'm not asking you to make any decisions. I'm not asking you to choose me, but I'm here and I'm interested. And like I said, like I like that they didn't get together in the end, and that she was sort of just happy to be friends with him. Like she went to his family reunion, not by Remy's invitation, but like she went to his family reunion, and like she wasn't hanging on him the whole time. She was just there, and she was really there to support Remy, which I really liked. And also I am blanking on his name at the moment. Jimmy, I want to say, the dude who owns the garage.
Oh, I was gonna say the guy who owns
Yes!
the garage too. I
Okay,
don't know
so
if
tell
it's
me why you
Don.
love
Is it
him.
Don or? Oh my goodness.
don't-
Okay, we'll have to look back and we'll comment his name down below because I cannot exactly remember. I think Jimmy's the friend.
Oh, the one that leaves.
Yeah, Jimmy's the one who ends
Duff.
up Duff.
Duff.
It's not Don.
Yes.
It's Duff. Okay, because I like Duff because where the dad was a father figure, Duff was also kind of a secret
Yeah.
underlying. Okay, my boss is also my best friend, who's also like, you know, the guy who I look to for advice. He was a little younger, right? He was in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
And he just had it seems like he was there for the guys when they needed just to know things.
Yeah.
And like point blank period. Like
Yeah.
if they needed some advice quick and easy and like no strings attached and it wasn't awkward talking to their parents, it sounds like he was the one to go to.
Yeah.
So that's why I liked him. He also had a fun little attitude.
Mhm.
He ran that shop like it was, you know, he ran it to the T.
Yeah.
When the other guy was late, he'd have a little moment and then he'd kind of pull it back together. And then he was there for him, helping him fix the car. Like there were
Mhm.
so many really great qualities, almost like maybe older brother vibes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that.
He almost like checked in on Remy more than his dad did, because there's also this whole like dynamic in the book that Remy is very, very independent and his dad doesn't really keep tabs on him, and it's not like portrayed as a bad thing. But just Remy has a lot of freedom. So Duff really came in and was like, okay, like if you don't want to go home because you have an early shift tomorrow, you can sleep in the garage. You need help fixing up this car, I'll help you. Jimmy needs money, here you go. Like that sort of thing, which I think Remy really needed, and probably also helped him in his decision to stay.
Yeah, and it wasn't like you were talking to your parents. You
Yeah.
know, there was a little bit of like I said, it's like more of a friend, even though he was the boss, more of a brotherly figure, because sometimes talking about those topics can be a little scary or a little bit uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Even though like our parents, you know, normally they say like we've seen it all, like you don't need to feel judgment when you come to us.
Yeah.
Maybe he felt a little bit better, especially because he saw him so much.
Yeah.
Remy was putting in a lot of time at that shop.
Mhm.
So that makes a lot of sense too. Instead of having, you know, that 1 hour maybe at the end of the day to talk to your dad, he had these 8+ hours at the shop being able to just kind of like have a conversation really quick, like on break. Oh, we don't have a lot of cars here.
Yeah.
Let's move. Like, let's have a little chit chat, you know, something
Yeah.
easy breezy. But this book overall, like we said, it was a great read. It was
Yeah.
nice to read. Like, since it was nice outside, read a lot of it by the pool, like just chilled,
Good
summer vibes. Yeah, and there was a little bit of that tension, but nothing that sent you over the edge. Nothing
Mhm.
that you needed to put the book down for, or you know, nothing that was too controversial or
Yeah.
anything like that.
I felt like you sort of got like exactly what you expected reading the back cover, which was nice. It was like a nice, quick, snappy read, sort of like almost like a palate cleanser. I don't know if that's the right word or not, but like
Oh,
we
yeah.
sort of read like a heavier book the last time with Bachelor Girl. There were a lot of like, I don't know, just really heavy themes and that sort of thing. And then Funny How Things Change, it was like a nice, like refreshing, like, oh, okay, I've sort of been through this, obviously not in quite the same way, but it was cool to like take that journey with Remy. And I have a speculative question for you.
Ooh, okay.
Do you think
T.
if Remy went to Pennsylvania, do you think he would have been happy?
Honestly, happy's a subjective
Okay.
word. I definitely think he wouldn't have regretted it. I think also, I feel like they're very similar vibes
Yeah.
too. Like maybe because I've never been to West Virginia, maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's totally off base.
I mean, my family lives in Georgia now, and like when we're on the back roads, like it looks like Pennsylvania. You could totally tell me that that was Pennsylvania,
Right.
and I would be convinced. I feel like it might be the same in West Virginia. I don't know. I've never been there either, but
I'm sorry to Lisa though. I think they would have broken up.
yeah.
I'm really sorry. I mean, she was a nice girl. I loved their relationship. I loved their love, but in that sense, I think he would have gone through a breakup out there, and that could have been something that could have caused trauma down the line, I think. So happy, maybe not, but I don't think he would have thought, oh, I did a stint in Pennsylvania. I did a year or two in Pennsylvania and I regretted it, because he probably would have just come back home, got that mechanic's license, and did the thing
Yeah.
with Duff, you know?
Yeah.
How about you?
I feel like I think Dana kind of hit the nail on the head, and like very towards the beginning of the book, she and Lisa are talking, and Dana's trying to like subtly like dissuade Lisa from this idea, and she's like, it's really hard to like have somebody who's not going to college, who's not in the same spot as you, like tag along for you like during this college experience. And I feel like that would have been like the ultimate breakdown of Lisa and Remy, especially with Remy being sort of like rough and tough and like of the land. I don't think he would have done well in like a college town, or just it's different. It's a different area. Like he comes from a very, very rural setting, and especially if he wasn't like immersed in that college, if the only reason he was there was for Lisa, I think he would have been a little bit depresso, you know?
Yeah, I think it would have definitely been a life altering moment. It wouldn't have been something that would have been detrimental to his success or his, like, you know, whatever his career would be down the line. Especially because I don't know about you, when I was growing up, just I put this on myself. Nobody put this on me, but I was like, if I don't make the right decision at first, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like,
yeah,
you
you're
know,
just done, dead in
yeah,
the water.
yeah, literally. And it doesn't have to be like that. Now that I'm, you know, older, you know, you just kind of look back and everybody does their own thing. Everybody finds their way. And for him, it could have been like a year or two elsewhere. You know, it could be 2 more years here. It could be he could go somewhere completely different, and you know, he'd be finding himself. I think that's the main thing here, is deciding to take the second to stop and think, okay, who am I? And going through the time, because he's only in his teens. Like, I feel also in your 20s, that's also a learning experience in its own, because you're on your own and you're making decisions and you're getting these jobs and you're paying for stuff. So yeah, overall, I think like he was going to have to go through some sort of self-discovery. This was a great step though for him, because I don't even think he felt bad. I think he just had a revelation, and he was just like, Lisa, it's not going to work with us, and Dana, it might not work for us either, but what's going to work for me and what I know and what I love is right here and where I am.
Yeah.
And going back, we didn't mention this, but Melissa Wyatt herself is a self-trained author. She read a bunch of books and decided what kind of style she wanted to go and pursue. And that's another tie-in here, because, you know, Remy didn't go to college, and Melissa herself also did not go to college. And I think that it's just like, this is a heroic story, right? And that's what she wanted to say. She wanted to tell stories about people who oftentimes don't get the story, don't get the happy ending.
They don't get that representation.
Yeah. So I think here, for him to be successful and say, hey, look, I'm going to go my own way, similar to what she did, look where she's at now, right? Like, it's really awesome to see that perspective.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And I think, yeah, I am really glad that Remy didn't go to college. I think that it wouldn't have fit his arc. I think it makes a lot more sense, and honestly would make him a lot happier in the long run. He did end up going to get his mechanic certification, and I'm so proud of him. I'm so excited for him. I want to know more. I want to know like where he ends up working, what he ends up doing. But yeah, it was really cool to like actually see that story play out. And the one thing that Melissa Wyatt said when we were talking to her, that she said these words are seared in her brain and now they are seared in mine, is that an editor told her like, he has to go to college. He has to go to college, because if he doesn't go to college, this is not hero-making literature. And I just think that's so ridiculous. Like, you don't have to go to college. There's so many people who don't. So why can't we tell their successful stories? Because they have them.
Right. And I think that's just goes back to what we were saying. Like, maybe that's that pressure that developed during that time frame. Maybe like, 10, 20 years ago, that was the way to go about your life, and that's usually the path people would take. But things are changing now, and this is just another story and another like proof of how you can take a different path and it's totally okay and you can still be successful. And I think that's the most important thing here is that it's your life.
Yes.
You got to live it and you
Yeah.
got to do things that are
You gotta
important
make
to
yourself
you.
happy.
Exactly. So with that, I got to ask, what would you rate the book for this month?
I am gonna have to give it, I think, a 3.5 out of 5, just because it was like, it was very surface value. I think it was a great book. It was a great read. Like I said, like it was fun. It was snappy. It was a nice little read. But there didn't seem to be like a whole lot that you had to like delve into. Like yeah, I don't know. It was
solid.
good.
It was
Yeah.
a solid 3. I would say 3 as well.
Yeah.
I thought it was solid. I thought the characters were great. I loved talking to Melissa about her process. I loved just the whole background behind it. And I also think this would be great for a teen, like, right?
Yeah.
Somebody, like you said, the YA in that genre, to see, okay, if things don't quote work out the way you thought they did, like your plan, it's like they say, you make a plan, God laughs, or like, you know,
Yeah.
it's just, it's always, it works out in the end. It works out. It always does. And I think for them, it would be great to read that while they're going through that,
Yes.
put the two together and almost have this like sense of, okay, I'm
Yeah.
relaxed.
I do wish that I had read this like when I was younger and sort of going through that, like, oh my gosh, if I don't make the right decision now, like I'm done for. I'm never gonna.
Especially with the breakup. I think then I'd
Yes.
be like, oh my gosh, like I shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because it feels so, you just feel so much, right? So I think that would be my, I think that's what I think in regards to the rating. And then definitely great. Obviously, it's a YA book. But for those teens that are looking for something, I think this is for you, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Especially those that are thinking about their next move, like 16, 17, 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
For you guys there. Now, looking ahead to this month's pick, Kaylee, would you like to
Yes.
introduce our next novel?
Absolutely, I would. So, our next novel is Dead of Autumn. It's by Sherry Knowlton. She lives in the mountains of south central Pennsylvania. This is actually the first book in a 5-book series. It follows lawyer Alexa Williams. Yes, Alexa Williams. And she just sort of keeps stumbling into these mysteries that she has to figure out. So, this one, it sort of essentially about like a Pennsylvania legend, the Babes in the Woods. It's about 3 girls that were found mysteriously murdered by a stream, and Alexa, the one day, stumbles upon another woman murdered by the same stream, and she's trying to figure out, like, are these connected? What happened here? And it's sort of just following her journey through these mysteries and through this life that because she's a lawyer, she's not a detective, but she's just trying to figure things out.
Yeah, and I'm excited because it's got a little mystery. We have yet to read a mystery here yet. I know there's a bunch of people who love something a little darker, a little bit, more of that question clue, like let's get the clues, let's come up with the final resolution. So I'm excited for this one. I think it's going to be great. And what's good about this one, if you do love this author and you love this book and you want to keep going, like our Adams County librarian today, Jessica said, there's 5. You can keep going, you can keep exploring, and you can keep looking into the series overall. So I think that's kind of nice, starting off with number 1 and then getting the opportunity to continue to grow with the series and seeing what's out there. Now, this one we're going to talk about on a Wednesday. So there is a programming alert there.
Yes, it'll be the last Wednesday of June instead of the last Tuesday.
Yes, we just had a little switcheroony there, so be sure to stay with us for updates on that. And for more information on the Fox 43 Book Club, folks, you know where to find us, fox43.com, excuse me. And we also have a Facebook group called the Fox 43 Book Club as well. So you can hop on there, talk a little bit about what you're reading, what you're enjoying, and we often post ourselves, just kind of keeping up with where we're at with the book, if we're finished, if we're reading it still, and some of our thoughts ahead of the discussion, which can be kind of fun and almost like a little sneak peek ahead of the actual discussion happening. And we do a lot of awesome stuff on the side. We did the Meet the Author piece, like we said. You can go check that out. And then we also do the behind the characters conversations as well. So feel free to follow us on there and hop on and join in the conversation.
We got lots of little extras for you.
Oh yeah, what is a book club without extras?
Right?
You know what I mean? You gotta make it fun. You gotta
sprinkle
talk.
them in there.
Yeah, because it's all about conversation, getting people back into reading.
Yeah.
Especially because it's summer now, folks. This is the best time to pick up some of these books. I know now today she said that this one's available at the Adams County Library, which is awesome because they didn't have it originally, but now they do. So we're good to go on that.
Yep. It's
And then-
also at the York County Library and I want to say Lancaster, or you can also request it from Access PA, which is like a PA-wide library system.
Beautiful. Yes. And then if you see behind us, we have Bachelor Girl here on the shelf, and then also Funny How Things Change. If you're just catching up with us now, you can head over and check out some of the books we've already highlighted and talked about and try those ones out as well. You can find our discussions online as well too, so you can kind of get in at any time. No rush, no fuss. We're just having fun here. And as mentioned, if you have any questions for us or any more thoughts on the book, feel free to drop more comments down on this video. This will be posted living on the Facebook Live page. So you can always interact with it, and we'll be there kind of keeping a close eye on it. And we'll make sure you get all those links as well so you can keep up with us.
Yeah.
Kaylee, I think this might be a wrap.
I think we did it.
I think we did it.
Thank you to everybody for joining us.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much. We hope you have a fabulous rest of your Tuesday.
Yes.
And
We'll see you in June on Wednesday.
on Wednesday. 10 a.m. though.